Hello everybody and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again. I just love being out and about in the woodland when the weather's like this in the summer months. The main reason being, of course, when you get rain like this in the summer, you've already got beautiful colours in the trees and the plants that are around us and the woodland floor and everything. But also you get rain which covers all of those and makes all of those colours really pop and give you a really vibrant, beautiful image every single time. I do find that I'll probably have to break out the polarising filter while I'm taking these shots, because you also tend to get a little bit of glare on surfaces where water has covered the surface. So in order to reduce that glare, I'm going to break out the polarising filter, I think. Also, if you look at the sky behind me, I don't know how well you can see it on the back of this camera, but you get some imposing clouds with a lot of drama in them, and a lot of colour and a lot of character. And if I can find a decent image that also incorporates some of that sky, that'll be a bit of a bonus. But as well as that, as well as using the polarising filter, I may find that I have to use neutral density filters just to bring down that sky a little bit, to make it a little bit more moody for the images. So let's see how we get on. Now, I've got no real set plan today for exactly where I want to walk, which is normal for me anyway, and normal for this channel. But I decided that after the rain, I just had to come out and have a look around and see what was going on, and just to see if I could get a few images, perhaps even just to find the odd portfolio image. But like I said, there's no set plan, so it's just going to be a bit of a circular walk and see what I can find. I've already spotted a little way back in that direction a composition that I've taken a few times before, and it just looks so much different in these conditions. So I'm probably going to go back there on the way back and capture that photo once again, just because it's so much different. But in the meantime, I'm going to head on along this way and see if I can find anything other than that. So this scene behind me is a little bit cliched, but it's the one I wanted to take, particularly after spending about 20 minutes trying to work out exactly what the composition should be and where it should be. What I've got here obviously is just off the path to the side of me. I've got beautiful purple heather, and I've got trees in the background, and above that I've got this beautiful moody sky, which, by the way, is getting brighter and brighter by the second. So the longer I hang around, the brighter that's going to get, and the more it's going to ruin some of the shots. So there's every possibility here that there's going to be more and more filters used in these shots. But initially I've set this one up trying to use the polarising filter to make sure I bring out some of the vibrance in all of the colours, and to avoid the glare from any light that there is. Also, that's brought the glare of the sky down very slightly, but it still wasn't quite enough. So I had to get out my neutral density, graduated neutral density filters, and I've used a 2-stop graduated neutral density filter to try and bring that sky down a little further. So hopefully the sky and the scene in front of me all match exposures, so I've got a decent balance between the two. Hopefully that's worked. So I hope you like the image. I'm going to move on and find something else now. So this is my next shot here. You can see these silver birch trees just behind me, with all of these ferns in the foreground and kind of dotted around beneath the trees. And I really like that image. I initially actually walked around to the other side of this little copse of silver birch trees, because there's another path that runs almost parallel to this behind those trees. But as I stood there trying to work out what the composition was, what I found was there was too much light from the sky that was overpowering the background, and without using filters here, because I can't, because the trees and the sky mix, so if I start to use a neutral density, a graduated filter, it brings down the light of the sky, but it also brings down the light at the top of the trees, and it would make the image look unusual, with the tops of the trees being darker than the rest of the trees. So what I decided to do was come back around to this side where there wasn't quite as much light in the background. I've still had to bracket the exposures because of that light in the background, but it made it much easier to do rather than trying to get filters out of the bag. And I've taken one shot here in landscape orientation. You have to excuse the midges around here. I've taken one shot in landscape orientation, but I've also taken one shot in portrait orientation. I can't decide which one I prefer at the moment, and like I say, I'm only going to be able to be certain of that when I can see what the images look like on the back of the computer when I get them home. So I hope you like whatever image I've put up here, maybe both of them, and I'm going to move on and see if I can capture another one then. I know this seems a bit of a cliche, but you've already seen one of the images similar to this already today. But what I've got here is all this beautiful purple heather, a silver birch tree at the back of the scene there, moody sky with moody clouds that make the image really interesting. And that's about it really. F16, and I'm focused on the tree itself. ISO 100 and 1/20th of a second. The lighting was just perfect for that at the time. 50mm lens, by the way, because that was the best composition. It got me quite close into the heather and made sure I got some of that in the bottom of the scene, but also got a decent focus on the silver birch tree at the back, and it's that tree that's the most interesting thing, to be quite honest with you. It stands out against that foreground of beautiful purple heather. So don't really pay too much attention to the heather. That's nice. That's just leading you to the tree at the back. Got a little confession to make. Just before I took that image, I did find myself walking up towards where the ice cream man is quite often parked up, and obviously he was there, and I think we all know how that story goes. So I had to stop by and get an ice cream while I was there. But I've been thinking in this vlog whether I really need to use my filters at all. I've only used them so far in one image in today's vlog, and it's the first time I've used them for a long time anyway. So I don't know whether I really need to use them. All editing software now, whatever you're using, tends to have tools built into it that allow you to bring back some of the detail in slightly overexposed areas of the image and reduce highlights and so on, and keep the massive detail that you managed to capture and show that off. That's because we've got these cameras with the capability of shooting raw images now, and as far as I'm concerned, shooting in raw is the very best option. No point shooting in JPEG. So obviously those raw images hold a huge amount of data, and ensure that we get really good images whatever happens, and we can still pull back some of highlights, shadows, detail, contrast and all kinds of things when we're using our editing software. We've got one more image that I want to show you. I mentioned earlier in this vlog, right at the very beginning of the vlog in fact, that I'd seen an image, a composition further back here on the way to the start of this little walk. And I've taken it before, but it looks totally different now to what it has done on the previous occasions that I've taken this photo. So I'm going to go back and take this photo now. The reason I didn't stop at the beginning and take that photo was quite simple, because at that point I didn't know for sure whether I wanted to include it in the vlog or not. So having made my decision now, I've got to really stick to it and go and get that shot, haven't I? So here goes. The only issue I've got now is that my wireless microphone has just run out of juice. Not a big problem, because I've got the shotgun microphone in the bag anyway as a backup. So I've had to switch microphones, and I'm going to have to literally hold on to the camera and try and show you my composition without actually walking into the composition to show you, because I've obviously got to have the microphone and the camera quite near to my face so I can talk provide the audio for the composition. So I'm going to be there in a few minutes, and then I'll show you the composition anyway. So if you guys have been watching my channel regularly for a while now, you'll recognise this tree behind me, and the path that runs in between it and the tree on the other side of the path. Basically you've got this tree here with this big long limb that reaches out across the path. Further back behind that there's another tree, and if you stand in exactly the right place, it appears as though this limb of this first tree actually attaches to the second tree behind it. It doesn't. There's quite a big distance between the two, but if you just put yourself in exactly the right spot, that's the kind of composition you get. It's really interesting and I love it. I've photographed it at different times of the year, but it's never looked like this because the colour and the light that are coming through the trees are always different depending on the time of the year. It looks nice and dark and moody at the moment, and I like the fact that there's a little bit of glare on the path that's caused by the wetness from the rain that we've just had, and it's still raining now. In fact, I'm not exactly totally sheltered from the rain, so I'm going to have to try and speed up and get this done fairly quickly before I get soaking wet. Luckily I am in a woodland, so I'm slightly sheltered from it, but there's still some rain coming through on my head. So I'm going to set this shot up and take this one now. I hope you like this. So this is the shot in front of me, or something very similar to it anyway. What you'll see here is the path that runs right up the middle of the image and kind of comes in from the bottom right hand corner and leads you into the image perfectly. And then you've got this tree on the right hand side with its limb spread across the path, and then almost touching or appearing to touch the tree behind it. Like I said earlier, it doesn't actually touch it at all. And then I've got this little bad boy just in the foreground as well, just to balance the image really. And that's it pretty much. So that's going to be an f/16. Not entirely sure what the shutter speed is going to be at the moment, but that doesn't really matter, because even though the woodland itself is quite dark, there's no movement at all, there's no breeze, there's nothing at all moving anything around. So I can essentially increase my shutter speed and make that a slightly longer exposure to make sure I get the image. So I hope you like this one. So that's it. That's the last image of the day, folks. Hope you've enjoyed that. What I found with that image was that I had to actually put the polarizing filter on the front of the lens, because what I discovered was those leaves in the foreground, that holly bush in the foreground, the leaves on it were covered in water from the rain, and that was giving off a huge amount of glare from those leaves themselves. And the only thing I could do to reduce that glare from those leaves and not affect the overall exposure of the composition was to put the polarizing filter on and just turn that, and it reduced the glare from those leaves and the highlights that were on those leaves, and it gave it the perfect finish. So like I said, that's the last image of the day. I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and also please remember to subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you again on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.